Good evening, myself Yogan, and I'll be presenting my topic Anubhavo no Anuvad, translation of experiences. So, what does experience we associate through? So, I'll quote a quote from Kamil Ali's. He initiates perception influenced by experience and knowledge creates an acceptable level of reality. So if we see what does the reality mean, while arriving at the topic, all these Indian miniature paintings while we see, there is a sense of element. Here you can see a Jharookha in which a woman is combing her hair while thinking the sense of something romance, or maybe while thinking sort of what she discussed with her husband, who is a Maharaja. What should I say something? So this space becomes an intimate space for her while sitting. And then again another painting which sort of arrives at a chowk. What the sort of Maharani playing or maybe talking and enjoying some of the leisure activities in the chowk at different periods. This also sort of resonates in a poem by Dinkar. मैं झरोखा हूँ कि जिसकी टेक लेकर विश्व की हर चीज बाहर झांकती है, पर नहीं मुझ पर झुका है विश्व तो उस जिंदगी पर जो मुझे छूकर सरक जा रही है। जो घटित होता है यहाँ से दूर है, जो घटित होता है यहाँ से पास है। कौन है अज्ञात, किसको जानता हूँ, और की क्या बात, कभी तो अपना भी नहीं है। So in a sense you are trying to see that space while he is looking, experiencing the what we as an architect always fascinates, the connection of inside and outside. How does it happen? So there is a video. relates to primarily what kind of experiences you have through that space. How does that space allows you to have that experience? So that space which has some of these architectural elements which we see, which tries to cater that experience which the user had or might have. So some of these interpretations which I have done in this modern contemporary housing, do we see that or not? So there is a quote that all things are subject to interpretation. Whichever interpretation prevails at a given time is a function of power and not truth. So in this, I will be seeing mainly Jharookha, otla, and chowk as the interpretation thereof. So we see Hasmukh center point, where one can see how the internal double-eyed space gives you the sort of internal courtyard in the house which we have, and you have the vertical connection towards the space. And while some of the rooms which we have on the first floor, where while cooking or maybe in afternoon one has to call to his or her son, then she will be just भाई खाવાનું થઈ ગયું છે, ખાના हो गया है, तुम नीचे आ जा, while calling from down to top. Again in Kanchenjunga apartment, where you see the same internal courtyard space, there is a difference. The typical courtyard is not seen, but through that volumetric space you kind of resemble that internal courtyard and the vertical connections through which we see. This is an outside balcony, but it sort of gives you the connection from which a house is opening to the common courtyard, and you see some of the street or maybe floor that you someone is sitting there, you might talk with them, all sort of other experiences one might relate it to. Then there is again a project, Amaya 612, where there is sort of a niche provided where a child wants to study or play. It becomes that space. He or she is hiding whether or not he or she wants to do some activity which is some sort of private, reading comics while telling to her mommy that I'm studying. These sorts of experiences create through these spaces which are seen. Now here we see the Jharookha, sort of where afternoon women or maybe mainly female who are sort of after cooking or maybe daily activities after, there is a rest time they want to rest. So in a bedroom this kind of element, if it is, they are chatting with their friends while sitting on that space, not on the bed especially, while sleeping or maybe taking rest there. Another examples of what we see, the international examples of this is a mirador, where you see the terrace courtyard from which you sort of again passing through chowk and connecting with other people and talking with other people. This is again mirador where there is a chowk made on the higher level where you meet and visit and have some experiences. I will say while you come up, you see because of the high density housing, this kind of space which gives you sort of experience. This is again a project, Oxford Tower, where you see a space provided where it can be a Jharookha space where again a child is listening stories from her mother in afternoon. So every day this cycle repeats, and this after becoming young or maybe graduating or maybe after 50 years, he or she would be recognizing, oh, I was hearing stories on that corner with my mom, having some experience, gaining, and then again it sort of resonates. In Prerna apartment, we are going to see the courtyard space, whether it is the central space from which you can go to each space of the thing. And then again there this kind of activity. And in courtyard or maybe chowk where there is this common festivals or maybe other celebrations are held. Here the Jharookha where people are sitting, talking together, or maybe playing sarod while sitting some of the relatives there, or maybe enjoying afternoon or the evening while sitting there and having the riyaz of that instrument. This is again a chowk in an apartment called Sankalp Eternity, where this kind of larger space which sort of becomes a space where people gather together, meet, talk, women come together, men come together, or maybe children's, and other people come while they play, and this becomes a sort of gathering space on a higher floor, which sort of gives an experience, and also sort of an otla space where you raise a plane and you sit there on the balcony kind of because it becomes in that space. In here you can see the platform can be raised, people can play cricket or maybe enjoy afternoon or evening time. Walden 7, this is an apartment module in which there is a window protruding out where it can become a plane and have sort of Jharookha exit. And some of the real which we see that one can observe that this space that one can sit or maybe read newspaper in the morning or have some thoughts around. Again, this kind of things provided which helps to have some experience. So these were all the questions which I had earlier and now. Then what is otla then? Why these are not popularly seen in today's apartments? What are the methods to have the true meaning of it? What does it mean? What is the core of that experience? What was the sort of, is there any cultural identity associated with that element which you see particularly? Or what is the quality of that element which caters to that space and then to the experience which you have? Thank you.
So some of these examples that you showed, like the chowk one in Serenity, Sankalp Serenity, or even this one. So did you go, did you happen to visit any of these?
No.
And so these that you are showing, the seeds and all that, it is your conjecture, your imagination. But are these projects in Anubhavo?
Yes.
So you should have tried to go. I would be really interested to know how they are using, because this one also is a large lobby space.
Yes.
And what was the other one which was triangular? That's also lobby on every floor.
Yes.
So this one? Do you think that people will be using this space for anything? And if so, what do you think they will be using it for?
There are a few things I had in mind that mainly nobody uses these floors because everyone, these towers are 10 floors, 10 floors or 12 floors. Nobody uses staircases. So eventually the space is used when you are reaching to whatever level you are there at your house. And if you want to go from this space to this space or maybe from here to here. So then only for walking or maybe thoroughfare is used. But eventually if there are families or maybe even sort of this kind of intervention, that this spaces is actually can be space where we can use it, or rather it's just a dead space which has become sort of this space and then led to a dead space.
Did you come across any examples where in the original design itself they have made seats or otlas in the lobby-like area? Like I know, I think Sun Builders has 2 or 3 projects in Sun Divine 1, 2, where in the lobby, so if there are 2 apartments, they have also made a small compound wall height partition between the 2 apartments so that the floor space then becomes privately used. So the lobby space is being used like a veranda. So people have put a seat with shoe rack at the below the seat kind of thing. Or this, I always keep forgetting the one where Aniket Bhagwat had his office before. Panch Tirthal, which has
old one. I'm talking about the
old one, which has very elaborate like front private space where people have even put small gates like compound gates, and people are putting tricycles and ladder and whatnot. The otla interpretation that we're talking about. So I have come across a few apartments where literally people are using the lobby space like an otla. But even in those cases, rarely does the window of the house open out onto that. But that one that you showed, I think before this Oxford something, that had a window opening into the this window. This opens, no, it's not the lobby space,
Yeah.
it's just outside the staircase. For a moment I thought it's opening into the lobby like space, it's not.
It's an OTS kind of.
Yeah, it's a open to sky cutout. But I wish so when you're analyzing the otla or the chowk or the Jharookha, I wish you try and identify what are the key components of an otla. For example, if I want that otla-like space to function like it was in the video, then in an apartment scheme, what, obviously I cannot recreate it exactly like that. So what is important? Is the otla important? Is the fact that the window of the house opens onto the otla important? Or the fact that the otla opens out onto a street where people are walking past you? Is that more important? So if at all you want to create an otla in an apartment, what would you do? And similarly for courtyard, so when you are saying double height as the reinterpretation of the courtyard, you are essentially identifying that the ability to be on an upper floor and talk to someone on a lower floor is one of the key characteristics of a courtyard. That is what a courtyard does. Yeah, you get privacy, but yet someone can talk to you. Any other quality that you think is fundamental to the quality of a courtyard, apart from interaction with us?
Connecting to spaces, passing through courtyard and diversify.
You're saying what the courtyard opens up. But anything else? Why would I call a courtyard a courtyard? Has anyone lived in a house with a courtyard? You have? You have? So what do you do in a courtyard that you wouldn't do in a balcony?
In a balcony.
Yeah.
So in our older house there was a courtyard in the house. It was a ground floor house only, but there was a large courtyard in between, and so all kinds of and the kitchen was opening into the courtyard. So a lot of the times kitchen like the courtyard also became the kitchen extension. So in the summer season, like from our like the farm, a lot of mangoes would come, so they would line the courtyard, and then we would sit all together and eat the mangoes in the courtyard. Or if there is pickle making, then that will happen in the courtyard because it's like they're adjacent to the kitchen. Or later we put a iron cage kind of a thing over the court because monkeys would come or like for safety reason. So we have a festival in the north called Teach. So in that time we put like Jula inside the house. So we would put Jula in the courtyard because it's a big space. You can take like big swings inside the house. So like all these kind of activities. And these are, I mean, fun that in the back. Huh?
Context there.
No, so close to there.
No one else has lived in a courtyard house.
So it was Anu, but what was
Yeah, Angan is it was the front Angan
No, it
or
was back. But
back. Yeah, so yes, if you are living in a bungalow type, you do have a front and a back open to sky space. No, I don't know courtyard. Because it would be interesting to study that for people who have courtyards in their houses, what do they do in that courtyard? And if at all they shift to an apartment, do they stop doing that altogether or it moves into some other part of the house? And if it is moving into some other part of the house, is it a compromise or it chalega? Isn't it? That could be another way. So, for example, if you're saying drying pickles, now that you get security in a courtyard, which you can't, of course, not do in the center point double height. So, I think one thing about the courtyard is exposure to outside, sun, wind and rain with privacy and security. That is one quality of a courtyard. So if I want to get wet in the rains or sit in the sun in my night clothes or feel that I am sitting outside but in my house clothes, a courtyard would allow that, a terrace would not. Like that, it would be interesting to identify what a otla does or a courtyard does or a Jharookha does. Not from a formal perspective, what it looks like, but what it allows you to do. And where does it go in an apartment? I think that would be a very interesting. So otla wala activity kahan jata hai? Apartment में?
Mainly in living room or maybe if it is balcony space.
Actually, I can take that video that you showed. वो वीडियो में यू लिस्ट डाउन क्या क्या हो रहा था और मुझे पता है कि अपार्टमेंट में वो कहाँ करेंगे. Will you say कि कुछ चीज कर ही नहीं सकते? Like someone was brushing their teeth, someone was huh? Someone was doing prayer, someone was shaving, someone was sitting and chatting and talking to or harassing neighbors or passers-by or helping passers-by. So काफी कुछ in that short video it showed lot of things. Like each one would be interesting. I find, for example, I find brushing the teeth very fascinating. In small towns, even in houses or bungalows in small towns, people still prefer to brush outside. People don't prefer to brush in a bathroom. क्योंकि you don't feel like बाजू में WC है, but most apartments don't allow that, and we are fine with it. अभी नहीं है तो नहीं है. Some people still brush in the balcony, but then you have to come all the way in if it's not a balcony with a tap. Kitchen चौकड़ी वाला balcony तो फिर भी चलेगा. Living room balcony then you are afraid कि वो drip होगा on the way to the bathroom. वो ओटला में उसको प्रॉब्लम नहीं क्योंकि ओटला में ही टैप है, the toilet is right there. So I've seen that in villages especially, everyone brushes their teeth outside. They love, huh?
Old city also.
हाँ भाई old city में भी people love to brush.
Most of, I mean, even let's say if you say that within a neighborhood, let's say there are 25, 30, 40 people.
हाँ.
Out of those 40, at least 15 will have a fixed spot, which is not negotiable.
हाँ.
Like it's only that, and that's a resolved thing, nobody sits there.
हाँ.
And you will still see the stain of the previous day brushing or every day. The thing is, there's a collective tolerance which is built
Yeah.
for a certain nature of behavior which you won't actually do when you move to an apartment. Suddenly you become some other animal.
Yes.
There's more
Yes.
that absorption of what will be called in one context a nuisance. This life somewhere else. Then when you picturize there, then you say the same thing becomes non-hygienic.
Yes. Yeah. You start looking at it in a very
Then
different
you
way.
see the
No, this whole idea of cleanliness or dirty part or not so clean part and clean part, or the idea that there are a lot of things which are messy, which also happen in and around the house, and there are a lot of things which are clean. That changes drastically the moment you move to an apartment. There is no dirty area.
There's
Or
no
you do-
division of that sort.
Huh,
There's
and-
no division of, I mean, actually no, I mean, I've lived in
Which-
New City
huh.
for 23, 22 years. You know how much time somebody is taking in the entire neighborhood. You know that how much time somebody is spending in it. I mean, everybody's fine with it. I mean, it's a very,
Yeah.
you might find it, but that adds to knowing that person better.
Yes.
I mean, there's a whole lot of other things get connected. I mean, but there's something where this
Yeah.
changing of standard,
Changing of standard.
Good standards or good standards. It's something which really also like considering the nature of activity or the nature of levels that one is talking about. That's where it starts breaking.
Yeah.
So, and perhaps, let's say if you want to connect that, another good way of looking at it is that if we look at a slum rehabilitation project, right, where because there is a slum, we who have experienced the ground very aggressively, and then for them it is too much. And then when they move to the 3-story, 4-story building, it is not still as high. They still have the luxury of ground, and so as compared to 12-story building. And when they move to that, how do they conduct their routine from a ground slum to 4-story? They still use to. They still don't change their standard. I mean, the good part is that they're still the way they are, which changes when somebody moves from one city to an apartment. You actually suddenly try to be like,
Yeah. A different person.
so then you might, I mean, there's no raw data in those scenarios, which maybe can look at.
Yeah, actually, if I just look at it from the perspective of acceptance of dirt or acceptance of the dirty,
Tolerance.
tolerance towards dirt or dirtiness, and its relation to everything. In fact, I would say even its relation to floor finish. Like if you look at this rough quota stone, and if a space has polished quota stone, your acceptance level of dirt changes dramatically. देखो polished quota stone से when I go to white vitrified tile, then your acceptance of dirt has gone for a toss. वो एक बाल होगा ना white vitrified tile पे तो दूर से दिखेगा, and you want to clean it because you can't tolerate it. So one could also ask questions on what is the outside space. So So in a pole, for example, what you're showing, that otla already from inside the house to the otla, the level of tolerance of messiness or dirtiness has increased, and then the street is the next level, where there will be cow shit also. Apartment में what is that immediate next level of dirt acceptance? कहाँ तक मुझे cow shit मंजूर होगा apartment? Whole house में it is immediately outside your otla on the street. You accept it. It is public space. It can be dirty. Of course, someone will clean it, but I will not immediately go and clean it.
Even your otla is also your
Otla is
allowed till your courtyard because the dog is enemy could come. If a cow will not. Dog is enemy could come inside the house.
If you keep the door, yes.
So there's still that acceptance towards if we say animal which is not your food. I mean, it's not a pet.
Yeah.
That way is also. I mean, there's still you won't panic. You will not really go mad.
Yes.
You're still like.
आ गया दरवाजा खुला था.
You will not be worried कि आपका बच्चा को shit खा जाएगा. You will not be. Because you know that still okay.
No, so I'm wondering that right now you have studied it from maybe a plan organization or even a proportion perspective. I'm wondering whether you should even go to the level of material and finishes, and what gives us the sense of inside and outside, because all of yours, the otla, the Jharookha and the courtyard, the three things that you are studying or trying to borrow from an old house, are all setting up different relationships between the inside and outside. All three are mechanisms of inside-outside relationship setting. And one could argue that in apartment, one of the things that suffers the most, especially on upper levels, or any level for that matter, is multiple articulations of inside-outside. There is one which is your sliding window, जहाँ से तुमको बाहर दिखता है, but that is a singular sort of relationship. So it is more than reinterpreting the element. I think it is about reimagining the relationship. What is the relationship of the inside of a house with the outside of the house? So sometimes I also wonder कि हम अगर सारे अपार्टमेंट लॉबीज को ब्रिक पेविंग कर देते हैं तो उससे क्या फर्क पड़ेगा? कुछ तो फर्क पड़ेगा. अभी क्या होता है कि inside is marble and outside is vitrified tile or some other tile. So the flooring is not acknowledging the inside-outside at all. Isn't it? I also find how much you sweep outside a whole house very fascinating. कि you will demarcate कि इतने तक मैं sweep करूँगा उसके बाहर नहीं. अपार्टमेंट के बाहर तुम क्या करते?
But so for an apartment, the boundary is from the building unit level, not your personal unit level. So I am thinking about just the brick floor on the lobby itself. I mean, would trigger different things there. But first we see that why we don't do it is because that we have a slab, we have a roof above it. And just because of that, we have this tendency that this is not going to get weathered. Or I mean, it doesn't have to stand the time ka or maybe the
sun, wind, rain,
so it just goes away. And then we think about that. Okay, now what is the immediate context? Is my house. So I would not like this to be a dirty or not cleanable space. And then I think about a material that will help me clean that space regularly.
Wait, so that like what you were saying, how is it that the moment you shift to an apartment, your notion of cleanliness suddenly, like even बंगलो में भी तुम बंगलो का साइड मार्जिन देखो, तुम रोज वहाँ झाड़ू पोछा नहीं करते हो, पोछा तो करते ही नहीं, झाड़ू भी रोज नहीं मारते unless you are super rich and you have like an army of servants. If you look at these smaller bungalows, you are,
Bigger ones, super rich ones. If you see the same, not so maintained, literally. Not
yeah, it is. Why would you do पोछा every day in your side margin? छोटे bungalows में तो depending on, especially if it is if you don't have servants, you don't sweep it at all, right? and पोछा तो करते ही नहीं, which means that even in a bungalow type, you are the same kind of, I mean, you also have a car, the apartment guy also has a car, but in a bungalow type, you are accepting a certain degree of dirtiness immediately outside your house in your own compound, which you are privately owning. But the apartment type, the way it is designed is not allowing you to even imagine. So the moment I say कि brick paved होगा, तो हमको लगता है ज़्यादा dirty होगा, उसको हम साफ कैसे करेंगे? Even though बारिश नहीं आ रहा है, although if it is something like this, तो side में से बारिश आ सकता है. If I keep railings, I can treat it like an outside space जहाँ पे बारिश आए. पर चलो नहीं आता है तो भी फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज एग्जैक्टली लाइक यू से, लोग बोलेंगे यार झंझट ब्रिक पेविंग करोगे तो साफ कैसे रखेंगे उसको, इससे अच्छा टाइल कर दे, इजी टू क्लीन. हाँ
बट सर
अभी वो पूरी कहाँ तक हम इजी टू क्लीन दुनिया बनाए, इज माय क्वेश्चन.
Yeah, so for this, when you gave the example of bungalow, for side margins you don't have a roof there.
yes हाँ.
So when the idea of roof comes, there is this idea of कि हाँ ये मेरा है और maybe this is there, I'll be inhabiting the space somehow at some point of the time, शाम को सुबह को or whenever. So when you have a, I mean, living in an apartment, this lobby is sort of you are inhabiting in some sense because
you कम यूज नहीं कर.
no, because lift में से when you
हाँ लोगों को दिखेगा, बेसिकली साफ नहीं है तो people will, because that's the only way to enter your house.
Yes.
So
for
people
side
will
margins, it's like you don't come from side margins and come to the. But if you see the front of the like porch or the foyer of the bungalow are very well maintained or clean. There is plantation. It's well maintained. But here, if you put a brick paving and it's dirty, then this idea कि हाँ enter करके क्या देखना है, I mean this dirt. So that is also.
although the front margin of a bungalow is also not as clean as the living room of the bungalow. वहाँ अगर 4-5 ants जा रहे हैं या जैसे lizards currying or leaves have fallen, so you'll sweep it the next day. Living room में एक lizard पड़ा है तो you can't tolerate it even for a minute. So the level of tolerance is very fascinating. There are stages in a bungalow also of degree of tolerance or in a pole house. Apartment में वो finer nuances है ही नहीं.
So outside the building unit, whatever is fallen on the ground.
हाँ. So it is directly outside the building. Then it is not your headache at all. Outside, so lobby से निकल के बाहर आए तभी outside.
Whatever is fallen down or whatever is on the common path.
So it might be interesting to use these kind of markers to discuss this, and then if you can think of reinterpreting it in an apartment, it would be fascinating. So don't go just like, अब मेरे हिसाब से ना वो तूने बोल तो दिया है वो एक झरोखा टाइप है, ठीक है, पर मुझे पता नहीं वो झरोखा में, if you are saying the whole idea of तूने पूरा poetry लिखा झरोखा, you talked about it, it's all about sitting inside the house and looking at the world. इधर तो मैं कहाँ दुनिया देखूंगा, मैं सामने तो ये अच्छा यहाँ से आया तेरा सामने वाले ये झरोखे से तो मैं सिर्फ सामने वाले झरोखे में देख सकता हूँ, तो ये कैसा झरोखा, ये तो झांकना हो. It's not a झरोखा, no? So don't do it based on the architectural characteristics that it looks like a झरोखा. It should mean a झरोखा.
Even if you're talking about Anubhavo, it better be Anubhavo, like
Anubhavo. Anubhavo
no, started no Anubhavo something.
Anubhavo no Anuvad. तो अनुभव क्या गया?
Anubhavo क्या?
तो झरोखा तो. But I think it will be fascinating. I find the fact that all three are to dealing with what is the inside-outside relationship very interesting trajectory. Now the next step would be if when you are designing apartments, you actively think about
Translate to
Yeah.
experiences that you have.
Also, if you map, you know how, but let's say if we start mapping at what junction or at what point of as you move to the space, when you start getting into ease versus when you start getting into attendance. So if you see the video, most of it is easy. Like if you see it goes, your overall senses will be much calmer, right? Which doesn't happen when you go to this. Right? And eventually what we are innovation saying is if somebody is sitting, eventually you're bringing peace to yourself and to others. So that's what eventually is happening to your body and your mind and psychologically also. Like if what are the areas at which the ease is increasing versus getting reduced? So as a which perhaps then brings that act of informal in a more natural way. Otherwise, we need to make an effort.